everyone, Seamus here. If you've ever seen this thing called clay and just thought, how? I'm your guy. Let's take a brief look at the history of clay, sculpting, and how we got to where we are now. 28,000 BCE, the glory days, back when nobody thought to mix water and clay. Until they did. As it turns out, doing that makes something of a malleable mud sort of thing, which they figured out could make some pretty wicked sculptures, like this one of Venus of Dolní Věstonice. Also found in this area were smaller sculptures made from animal bones, fat, and ash, along with clay. Anyway, a short time after they discovered clay and its malleability, they figured out that heating up their sculptures made them harder, which meant they could keep them around longer. They decided that since these art pieces were so fun to make, they would make some more functional objects as well. These included things like containers for food, bricks, tiles, and statues of honor. This proved to make sculpting a huge part of art in society, quickly after its discovery. Through this idea of heating different materials to extreme temperatures, we found out about some way past alright stuff, like glass. Every invention needs its one-up though, so let me introduce the pottery wheel. This hunk of productivity made things a breeze to sculpt, and it allowed for smoother products. There is a small caveat though, seeing as the year was only 4000 BCE, so they didn't have the most electronic, fast wheels, at least not yet. On the topic of the wheel, its official name, known by many, is the potter's wheel, which makes sense. You use it to make pots, at least most of the time. Yeah, if you wanted to make something of significant detail, you probably wouldn't want it constantly spinning around. That's not to say that pots can't be detailed, no. More so just that things like statues would be harder to make in that way. One last thing about the basic process of ceramic creation, glazing. Glaze is essentially paint for clay, but also its own little thing too. It provides a glassy surface to lay over the leathery or otherwise rock-hard one. Not only does it provide this new surface, but it also provides a nice and neat decoration. This is good for when you get tired of the constant white pots and sculptures. Glaze really adds a much needed spice. When we fast forward a bit, we can really get a feel for how far ceramics as a whole has come. Let's hop out of the Common Era and really see some developments at a half. The 1400s saw Europe getting into the ceramic scene when they developed the very best possible ovens to cook clay to perfection. These ovens were later referred to as kilns. Throughout the 1500s, Middle Eastern Asia and Europe were way super into earthenware, making sculptures, bowls, and bricks by the barrelful, and man, these things are works of art.
Hey guys, I'm Katie. I'm going to be explaining the pottery process. Here we are in our ceramics room, and the first step is wedging. This just compresses the clay, gets all those air bubbles out, makes it an even consistency. Here we have our pottery wheel. So the second step is throwing. The first part in that is wetting the bat a little, helps the clay stick. And while we're throwing, the first step is centering the clay, kind of coning it up a little bit. This helps center the clay more easily. It's just one of the easier techniques. Centering is important because it helps ensure that your pot is even, it has nice consistent walls, and that it's just all around a good pot. So as you can see, now the next step is to brace your hands, kind of open the pot with your two thumbs in the center, and then compress the bottom. That helps ensure that there aren't any cracks. And then we pull up the walls. Clean it up a little bit and stop the wheel, wire off with the wire tool, and then take that bat off the wheel. Now we let it dry for a couple days and get to a consistency called leather hard. this is the perfect consistency for trimming, which is the next step. We take our trimming tool, kind of trim all that excess clay off. Then you go in with your needle tool. It is basically just a guideline that lets you know where you need to start and stop trimming. What I'm doing here is just taking that clay off, making what's called a foot, which just raises the pot up off the ground a little bit. As you can see, this pot cracked a little bit. We didn't compress it enough. So what happens is we break it up into little pieces, gather them, and then we dump them into our clay reclaim bucket. It makes the clay back to what's called a plastic consistency, which is what we started off with. That gets recycled into brand new clay. Next, it goes through the kiln and it's called bisqueware. And at this point, the clay is not completely vitrified. This is the perfect time to glaze our piece. And so glaze is basically just in the kiln, it turns into liquid glass. So you really don't want to get any on that bottom or else it will get stuck to the kiln shelf. Wiping it off so that it doesn't get stuck. Now we go for that second glaze firing, and now we have our final piece. Thanks, guys.